Senator Klobuchar.
Thank you very much, Senator Durbin, and thank you to the witnesses today. I'm going to focus, I welcome Gretchen Carlson from the great state of Minnesota, and I'm going to focus my questions today on antitrust. And Mr. Schwartz, I wrote a book on this that also can help you step on it to get to the top shelf. I'm going to ask Ms. Gillis questions on this front. Because I think it's an important thing that hasn't been touched on yet. And I'm chair of that subcommittee, work with Senator Lee on this extensively, as well as Senator Grassley. And I'm concerned that some of the forced arbitrations are frustrating the purpose of our antitrust laws. Like I noted during our hearing on one of the hearings on the topic in 2019, I was and still am disappointed to see that the Supreme Court allowed American Express to force arbitration, even though doing so would make it difficult to enforce the law. In her dissent in the case, Justice Kagan wrote that the forced arbitration provision in the employee's contract with American Express violated the Sherman Antitrust Act by depriving parties of a chance to challenge alleged monopolistic conduct. Meanwhile, large companies were able to negotiate better fees or arbitration clauses than smaller companies who are still forced into arbitration clauses. You testified, thank you, both in 2019 and in your testimony today that forced arbitration interferes with antitrust and other laws. Could you elaborate on that?
Thank you, Senator. I'm happy to. At that hearing, you might remember Alan Carlson, the chef owner of Italian Colors restaurant, the named plaintiff in American Express versus Italian Colors, testified. I think, it was a striking piece of testimony. He told us that other companies, Walgreens, CVS, Safeway, were able to take American Express to trial because, of course, they have a tremendous amount of market power. So American Express could not bind those large companies to forced arbitration clauses, whereas it did so for all small businesses, including his restaurant, which meant that he could not actually hold American Express responsible for these antitrust, for the alleged antitrust violations. And I think that, when we think about small businesses, as you all do all the time, small businesses do a tremendous amount for this country, and one of the things they do is they enforce laws, just like consumers and workers do. And they are often at the front lines of enforcing antitrust laws because they are often victims of antitrust violations of anti-competitive behavior, which is what that case was all about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And as we're seeing more consolidation in such a big way, and we're seeing issues, as we all know, with the tech companies. Unfortunately, we've been stagnant here about changing those antitrust laws. We've gotten a number of bills through committee, and I appreciate the chairman's leadership on that. We have, they're all bipartisan, every single one of them, but they're sitting there. And we had one victory at the end of 2022 to get more funding for the agencies, given these huge cases, especially involving Facebook and Apple and Amazon and Google. And we got that done. Senator Grassley and I did a change to the merger fees, which was estimated for this year about $50 million more. Less merger fees for small mergers, bigger ones for big mergers. And then, poof, we passed it 88 to 8 in an amendment, and then the money disappeared under some rock in the federal government, and for the first time in 25 years did not go to the Antitrust Division of the Department of Justice after an attempt was made to delay them from getting the fees. What is this whole story about? It's a pretty outrageous story, which I've said, and I've been promised this is going to change in the future, but it's also about the importance of private enforcement of the antitrust laws, and I just want to make a case for that. But I do want to end with Ms. Carlson, who I've known for quite a while, and just asking about what you said in your testimony, that the law we passed, and I thank my colleagues for their leadership, about ending forced arbitration of sexual assault and sexual harassment, becoming law in December of 2022. You stated this law is already making a significant impact in the lives of countless survivors. Can you describe in more detail the positive effects of this law?
Yes, thank you so much, Senator Klobuchar, and always great to see you from our great state of Minnesota. I mentioned Kirsten Tiger. She was a bartender at a prestigious country club who was harassed by multiple members, allegedly, as well as by a security guard there, allegedly. And still employers are trying to force victims of sexual misconduct into arbitration because the onus is upon the employee to understand that this law has passed and that they do not have to go to arbitration. So I have not specifically spoken personally to Kirsten, but I speak to women every single day who say, my company is still trying to force me into arbitration, and I say they can't do that anymore. So Kirsten's is a case of that they went to a judge. Her company filed a motion to compel arbitration, and the judge denied it, specifically because of this groundbreaking law that had passed. A judge in Texas recently, Blaze Media, tried to get a motion to dismiss against one of their employees, Sydney Watson, who alleged harassment allegedly by her co-anchor over a span of time, and that was also denied because of the law. So what I have found over the last 2 years is that the biggest and most important thing after passing this law is to educate people about it. Because companies probably are not going to willingly tell you that you no longer have to be forced into arbitration for sexual misconduct. And this is why it's so important for me to pass the Protecting Older Americans Act as well, because it's my goal to be able to protect all human rights violations that happen at work, including Senator Booker's bill with regard to race discrimination and forced arbitration, and any other protected class. After my experience at Fox News and what I had to go through, and respectfully, Mr. Schwartz, nobody would have ever known about my story if I had been forced into arbitration. Nobody. And we arguably would not be in the Me Too movement right now if that had happened to me. And so if that's not a compelling story enough to understand what happens with the secrecy of forced arbitration, I don't know what is. But it's time to do it for other people who are having their human rights violated at work and being shoved into secrecy.
Thank you.